Hello, online pipe community. Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. I'm together again with,
Potter Piper.
and we are going to be doing Screwtape letter number 22 this week. Father Brian, you're reading this week. Take it away.
My dear Wormwood, so your man is in love, and in the worst kind he could possibly have fallen into, and with a girl who does not even appear in the report you sent me. You may be interested to learn that the little misunderstanding with the secret police, which you tried to raise about some unguarded expressions in one of my letters, has been tided over. If you were reckoning on that to secure my good offices, you will find yourself mistaken. You shall pay for that as well as for your other blunders. Meanwhile, I enclose a little booklet just issued on the new House of Correction for incompetent tempters. It is profusely illustrated, and you will not find a dull page in it. I have looked up in this girl's dossier and am horrified at what I find. Not only a Christian, but such a Christian, a vile, sneaking, simpering, demure, monosyllabic, mouse like, watery, insignificant, virginal, bread and butter miss. The little brute. She makes me vomit. She stinks and scalds through the very pages of the dossier. It drives me mad. The way the world has worsened. We'd have had her to the arena in the old days. That's what her sword is made for. Not that she'd do much good there, either. A two-faced little cheat. I know the sort, who looks as if she'd faint at the sight of blood and then dies with a smile. A cheat every way. Looks as if butter wouldn't melt in her mouth and yet has a satirical wit. The sort of creature who'd find me funny. Filthy, insipid little prude, and yet ready to fall into this booby's arms like any other breeding animal. Why doesn't the enemy blast her for it? If he is so mono-struck by virginity instead of looking on there grinning. He's a hedonist at heart. All those facts and vigils and stakes and crosses are only a facade, or only like foam on the seashore. Out at sea, out in his sea, there is pleasure and more pleasure. He makes no secret of it. At his right hand are pleasures forevermore. Ugh. I don't think he has the least inkling of that high and austere mystery to which we rise in the miserific vision. He's vulgar, wormwood. He has a bourgeois mind. He has filled his world full of pleasures. There are things for humans to do all day long without his minding in the least. Sleeping, washing, eating, drinking, making love, playing, praying, working. Everything has to be twisted before it's any use to us. We fight under cruel disadvantages. Nothing is natural on our side. Not that that excuses you. I'll settle with you presently. You have always hated me and been insolent when you dared. Then, of course, he gets to know this woman's family and whole circle. Could you not see that the very house she lives in is one that he ought never to have entered? The whole place reeks of that deadly odor. The very gardener, though he has been there only 5 years, is beginning to acquire it. Even guests, after a weekend visit, carry some of the smell away with them. The dog and the cat are tainted with it, and a house full of impenetrable mystery. We are certain it is a matter of first principles that each member of the family must in some way be making capital out of others, but we can't find out how. They guard as jealousy as the enemy himself the secret of what really lies behind this pretense of disinterested love. The whole house and garden are one vast obscenity. It bears a sickening resemblance to the description one human writer made of heaven, the regions which there, where there is only life, and therefore all that is not music is silence. Music and silence, how I detest them both. How thankful we should be that ever since our father entered hell, though longer ago than humans reckoning in the light years, and could express no square inch of infernal space, and no moment of infernal time has been surrendered to either of those abominable forces, but all has been occupied by noise. Noise, the grand dynamism, the audible expression of all that is exultant, ruthless, and virile. Noise, which alone defends us from silly qualms, despairing scruples, and impossible desires. We will make the whole universe a noise in the end. We have already made great strides in this direction as regards the earth. The melodies and silences of heaven will be shouted down in the end. But I admit we are not yet loud enough or anything like it. Research is in progress. Meanwhile, you, disgusting little. Here, the MS breaks off and is resumed in a different band. In the heat of composition, I find that I have inadvertently allowed myself to assume the form of a large centipede. I'm accordingly dictating the rest to my secretary. Now that the transformation is complete, I recognize it as a periodical phenomenon. Some rumor of it has reached the humans, and a distorted account of it appears in the poet Milton, which the ridiculous addition that such changes of shape are punishment imposed on us by the enemy. A more modern writer, someone with a name like Shaw, has, however, grasped the truth. Transformation proceeds from within and is a glorious manifestation of that life force which our Father would worship if he worshiped anything but himself. In my present form, I feel even more anxious to see you, to unite to you myself in an indissoluble embrace. Signed, Toad Pipe, for his abysmal sublimity, Undersecretary Screwtape, TEBS, etc.
Well, this week we have something of a humorous interlude. Lewis is backing off from really the deep thought. He leaves us with a couple of things, but he also leaves us this week with a little bit of humor in the interplay between Screwtape and Wormwood in this letter. But he does start right off the bat with Screwtape's irritation that Wormwood has allowed his patient to fall in love with what we would consider a good girl, with a Christian girl who is genuinely Christian and not just playing at it. Apparently, because as he has gotten to know the girl's family, they have this contradictory and illusory, as Screwtape would have it, uh, disinterested love for each other, uh, to the point that it's infecting the gardener and even the house pets. And so we have a genuine Christian family. Well, from Screwtape's standpoint, this is truly dangerous because this builds a small wall of protection. It makes it harder for Wormwood to reach his patient and to tempt him, to drive him away from his faith, and to drive a wedge back in between him and God. This family helps him provide that protection. Well, fair enough. It goes beyond just a choice of loves or dates or even marriages. It really is important who we spend our time with. It's important who we hang around because we become like the people that we spend our time with. And in this case, he's apparently spending quite a bit of time with his family because it's harder for Wormwood to get a hold of him. This is the kind of thing that we really need to do ourselves. We need to find solid people that we can spend our time with so that we become more like them instead of becoming more like a less desirable crowd. Uh, well, your parents were right when they said, you shouldn't hang around him. He's trouble. Well, that's right. Hang around the ones who aren't trouble, and you will become more and more like them. He does go on into a couple of other interesting things. I got a little tickled when he said something about humans not being able to measure the time in light years. Well, nobody can because a light year isn't a measure of time; it's a measure of distance. But I think he really meant eons, and that this music and silence that he so abhors. Well, it's that those are things that help us to focus and concentrate when we take time to pray or to study scripture. Music and silence both can help toward that. So of course, Screwtape is going to just hate them. What he really wants is a cacophony of disjointed noises, whether they're literal noises or noises in the signal, so to speak, that distract us from the truth and from a good task at hand.
Looking at this letter, as you mentioned, kind of a interlude of humor and how he did so, uh, really escalating through the letters lately of how, I was thinking of how in the beginning of the letters that, Screwtape was so collected and calm and even seemed to be polite to some extent to Wormwood. And then this one, he just really shows the true character of evil of the world below, and just vomits this hatred upon Wormwood, especially as you mentioned through this good girl, this not just a Christian, well, a Christian girl who we would say actually believes in what it means to be a Christian, to be a part of a family that believes in their faith and lives it out. Um, Even just some of the words that Lewis uses really gets down to that deep-seated hatred. Um, I kind of caught my interest when he referred to that. This would be kind of the good girl back in the early church that would be put in the Colosseum, put in the arena, put in with the lions, and yet he seemed to say that it would also be a waste because she would just smile as she died. And as you mentioned, Ethan, about you know who we hang around with and who influences us, and the fact that I think of the early church, so many Christians that were willing to die at the hands of the Romans, and it's really and not because the Romans hated Christians for that, because as we know, the Romans as pagans didn't care if there was one more God. They just couldn't stand that that was the only God. There couldn't be anyone else, and you were willing to not compromise that faith in Christ. So therefore, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of faith. And this good girl, this good Christian girl, is just that type. And so much so that it could it could really knock off the rails the work that Screwtape and Wormwood have been doing and trying to distract from. Uh, and so it is a good point to look at what influences us with people and what we do, and are we putting into our life things that help to bring our mind and heart to Christ, to the good. uh, whether it's with the people we're with, nature in which we go to, music that helps to calm our minds and our hearts. um, so I think like you said, there is a lot of reflection given in this letter.
Yeah, like I said, he doesn't go really deep, but the one thing that he drives home there, to me, is it's really a significant point that uh, that those people that we surround ourselves, and like you said, the things we pour into our lives, whether it's the music we listen to, the books we read, the TV and movies that we watch, uh, all of those things have a deep impact on us, and we can build up our resistance and decrease our vulnerability to wormwood by choosing those wisely. And his example in this case, because he had been building up and talking about sexual purity and the the marriage relationship to begin with, this was a natural next step, was for this patient to be falling in love. And yes, certainly our choice of a spouse is very, very important. If we're going to marry, we definitely should be looking, as we talked about a week or two ago, for the right characteristics, the things that will actually build us up spiritually, in a wife, um, or husband, if any of you out there are ladies. But the important thing there, the bigger point is the people we surround ourselves with, and the inputs that we have into our lives. And I got so tickled by his annoyance with something as trivial as music, or conversely silence, that that noise, which is what we seem to be surrounded by in our culture nowadays. Noise is exactly what he wants.
Definitely. And the distractions that he wants. And, a part of what it's happening with me, and I hope with the viewers is that better sense of discernment of how does Screwtape and Wormwood, will use their names, how are they trying to distract us within our life and within our daily life with people that we love and that love us? The power of being able to see that subtlety of what he's trying to do and distract us from Christ, from the good, from the decent, the integrity, honesty. And I think as we've been now going through letter, I think we said 22,
Mhm.
I really, and we, Ethan and I really enjoy, the comments that are made in the videos. Because I try to watch after a day or two to go into and uh, see people, comments and that. And but I think, I know for myself, it's really been powerful to try to see how am I, how is Screwtape and Wormwood trying to distract me to
Mhm.
keep me from that true Christian belief, that true Christian faith. And because if we're doing that right, that hatred of Screwtape, he hates that belief. He hates that love. And how much hatred he has when we're so close to Christ. The power is that the love of God is so much more than the hatred of Screwtape. Um, but I hope a lot of the viewers are really starting to see that distraction and how Screwtape and Wormwood are trying to keep us away from those loving relationships, the loving relationship of God, family, spouse, and nature, and the good things that God wants us to have in our life, and to keep them ordered according to His plans.
Well, and it's nice that Lewis does it, this chapter, this letter, in such a humorous way. The turning into a centipede, and the bubbling up of the hatred that exists between Screwtape and Wormwood. The fact that he calls Wormwood out and says that, you've always hated me. Well, the your affectionate uncle from the earlier letters is gone now, and at least for the duration of this letter, it sure is, because he says, I'll deal with you later. Where this subject isn't over. So the hatred between the demons bubbles up. Well, it was always a ruse to begin with. We know that love is of God, and hatred is not. Hatred is, that's what fills all of hell and hell's minions. And they don't want us, like you said, they don't want us to be able to experience that real, disinterested love that they don't believe exists. And this common theme from the very beginning, the very first letter on, is, as you say, is distraction. It's taking our focus off of God, and putting it onto either good things that can still distract and become idols, uh, or on things that we shouldn't be focused on to begin with. Screwtape is pretty well aware that there are lots of good things. He says, God has created this entire world full of pleasures that wants his little creatures to participate in and to enjoy. He gives a list of them. And Screwtape acknowledges, in order to create that division and that distraction, they have to distort those good things and make them bad. They have to take what is pure and twist it. In its pure form, we're allowed to enjoy them as much as we want. Uh, and so the humor, the humor that came in with this particular letter, I truly enjoyed.
My guess is, and I haven't read the next letter. It's been so many years, I don't remember.
Right.
So I'll see if I'm right. My guess is the next letter, Screwtape is going to collect himself, try to collect himself, and we'll see where Lewis brings us as we come now, starting to the tail end of the Screwtape letters.
Yeah, I have not been reading ahead either. And folks, if you have been, well, good for you. If not, then you'll be discovering that next letter with us next week. Until then, light something you like. Enjoy your afternoon.